Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I want to show you this very beautiful Breitling Colt 41. It's on a Professional 3 bracelet. This belongs to my very good friend Robert of the Random Rob channel. And it's a little different from the normal Breitlings that we've been accustomed to seeing their designs. This one is not overly large, overly polished, nor is the dial overly busy. Breitling certainly in some instances has the reputation of oversized, over-polished, over-busy dialed watches. And this one is definitely a departure from that. You can see it's a little bit more clean, a little bit more subdued. I guess you could say a little bit more under the radar, but it still has quintessential Breitling elements that we as Breitling fans have come to really appreciate. So it still has wrist presence. My wrists are 7.25 inches in circumference there. And you can see it plays a little bit smaller than the 41 millimeter diameter would suggest. To me, this fits more like, more like a true 40. And part of that is due to the fact that the case is very thin. It still retains 200 meters of water resistance in a screw down crown, but it is just nice and thin. And the bracelet, guys, if you've never tried a Pro 3 bracelet or any Breitling bracelet, they just feel like $1,000,000. You know, each link is separate, it is fully articulating, and the overall feel it just melds very well on wrist. Now, quintessential Breitling design, like I mentioned, we have the fully indexed steel bezel with large rider tabs at the 6, 9, 12, and 3 o'clock positions. It's affixed to the case with screws, which is always nice to see. And one fun feature is if we look at the pip on the 12 o'clock rider tab, just to the right of it in the bezel there, if we can get the camera to focus, you'll see the micro signature, the engraved Breitling logo. I really think that's pretty fun. So, I mean, the watch is beautiful. It's a little bit more understated, a little bit, outside of what we're used to seeing from this brand. Now, nobody can do a crystal quite like Breitling. Their cambered sapphire crystals are among the best out there. You can see in some lights, you swear you could just reach in, touch the hands and markers, and then in other, when you're getting direct, harsh reflections, you can see that iridescent sheen, which just looks beautiful. So I really like the crystal here on this Colt. It allows you to see the dial details, the rich nature of the sunburst effect, the applied markers, the handset that is slightly curved, not quite flat or pressed. It's got a little bit of dimension to it. It allows you to see all of these elements in very nice clarity. So I really do appreciate that. Now the movement in here is the 28-24 that Breitling takes, top grade, and they regulate it to multiple positions. They do get it chronometer certified, so this is a certified chronometer. And my friend Robert, who I'm borrowing this watch from, he did place it on his time grapher. And it is about the best performing 28-24 that I've seen. The amplitude is over 300, 0 beat error, and then in multiple positions, it's just running just about spot on. So I'm very impressed with what Breitling has done with a trusted movement here, the 28-24 that's in this Colt. Now, what would be negative aspects? Although I am a big fan of this piece, even luxury watches, they have elements that could be improved that would enhance the overall experience by the user at the end, by the consumer. This watch certainly is no exception to that rule. So a couple things. One, I would say, is the clasp. The clasp feels dated. It's a flip lock clamshell type. So there's the lock, and then because this is new, it's a little bit hard to open. This will wear down over time, over use. I've seen Breitlings, some Pro 3s, Pro 2s, that after years of opening and closing, these clamshell clasps are almost on the cusp of just falling off, and the only thing keeping them in is the flip lock. So I mean, it's a dated system. It kind of, when you see $500 Longines that basically have the same system, I don't know, you want Breitling to update it and maybe do like a push button deployment or something that feels a little bit more modern and in keeping with the nice quality of the links and such. Now, one other thing to note, if you've never had a Breitling bracelet or clasp, your instinct would just be to push down here to close it, and that's not actually what you want to do. you want to take your thumb and instead of pushing down, you want to kind of push up. And that's how you secure it. And so that's just, I don't know, a little interesting thing on these clasps. Now, what would be other negative aspects? Some people critique the dial of this model, that the double indice at the 6 o'clock position just looks a little bit out of place. I think people say that because it's a bit uncommon. You don't normally see that. But I do think it balances, you know, the top and the bottom portions of the dial nicely. I don't think that's an issue. What I would prefer to enhance the look is actually the size of the applied markers. You'll notice the metal surround is very, very thin. Almost non-existent if you're looking at the watch straight on. It almost looks like the C1 Superluminova is printed right onto the dial, but the applied markers are very, very thin. Now I'll place a picture here of the outgoing generation. It's got a lot more busy layout, does come in 44mm size. So, you know, again, it's the more classic quintessential Breitling that we have in our minds is when we think of the brand. But look at the markers. You can see the applied markers are a lot thicker. They're a lot deeper, and this one has C3 Superluminova. So I think this 41mm Colt could be improved by taking the fatter markers of the outgoing generation and just utilizing them here on this version. But I know that's a little bit nitpicky. It's a little bit personal preference, but something I thought was worth noting. Now the last element that kind of makes me scratch my head is the end link and how it translates into the case. You'll notice the lugs here are a little bit angular, a little bit dominant, and there's quite a bit of misfitment, I guess you could say. You can see the end link protruding not from the front, but also from the back here. So it's kind of a fat end link, and it doesn't really fit the case lugs that well. And there is a little bit of wiggle room, I guess you could say. So it's a little bit surprising for a watch that costs $3,600 new. So those are my thoughts on the watch, the things that I love about it and the things that I think could be improved. Because guys, there is no such thing as a perfect watch, even on beautiful entry-level luxury like this Breitling Colt 41. So I want to thank Robert for lending this in, letting me spend a little bit of time with it. Breitling is one of my favorite brands, and this one has been very, very enjoyable to spend a few days with and present to you guys here on the channel. So hope you enjoyed the video. Reach out with any questions you may have. Appreciate you taking the time to watch, and see you in the next one.